Hello, welcome to Love Surf Connect. I am Alfredina, and today I have a story for you. Today I had a conversation with my boys around this concept. We were having a little bit of an argument because I'm their teacher and their mom. So today, when I wanted to roll in a new way of studying for our vocabulary words in science, they had a lot to say. And a lot of it was, but why? But why do we have to do this? And why do you have to do that? And today I didn't feel like doing it. And I was sitting there questioning all of my life choices. I wanted to raise critical thinkers. So ever since they've been little, if they ask questions, I give them the reasons why they should do it. um this is the rule. Why can't I do that? Well, these are the consequences or whatever. We often have these long conversations, but there are days like today where I was under the weather and I just wanted to get through the day. And they wanted to know the why was this, why that, why do we have to change it? And I just wanted them to obey. I just wanted them to do as I said. And I was, this is all happening in my mind in seconds. But it's kinda like, ugh, okay, they're asking, they wanna know, let me give them the reasons. And as I'm going deep into the research that I read about how this and blah, 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 and I'm like, "Wait a minute, pause for a second. Let's talk about this." And I feel like God laid that down in my heart to explain to my children a concept that had nothing to do with science, vocabulary, memorization, or anything, and everything to do with a lifelong relationship that they'll have with their father. I said to them, "You guys, it's important to ask questions and ask why. But I feel like you guys and I have been in relationship long enough that you should trust me and jump to obedience a little quicker." I'm not saying that my children are not obedient, but I'm saying that in things like this, when something is new, it's okay to ask why. We have a whole book. It's called the Bible of God explaining to us the why behind things and who He is and who we are and why He thinks what He thinks and all the things. But eventually, maturity in the spirit, maturity spiritually says that when I know that it's coming from God, I don't need to know the why in order to obey. So that was what I wanted to let my children know. I wanted them to grasp that sometimes we can have conversations, but other times they need to not hijack the whatever is the activity with their questions and stop and ask themselves, in the past, has my mother led me astray? In the past, has she done something maliciously? In the past, has she exacted something from me that was not fair or didn't make sense once she took the time to explain it? And since that is a no across the board with them, then they can just jump to, I can get an explanation later. I don't need to ask her to explain before I obey. Um, and it's not that my kids demand an explanation for everything, but especially in our time of school, there's a lot of back and forth because I want them to love learning, and you cannot love learning if you're not allowed to ask questions. So I'm dividing those things. Um, so I explained that to them. I was like, this is about trust and obeying. So you cannot trust me. You cannot obey me, and you shouldn't obey me if you cannot trust me. If I am not a trustworthy adult, then obedience may not be necessary. If I am constantly leading you astray, obedience is not something that you need to do. But that's not you and I. And they're like, "Oh, that makes sense." We did it as I had told them that we were going to do it. We jumped in. I also reminded them that, like their mother, when they're exposed to a new thing, they sometimes just fight it for the sake of it being something new and a disruption to the routine. But you push through it, and before you know it, it's the new normal, and you can move on. We can all move on with our lives, right? And it has always been for the better. It's annoying, but it's good sometimes to take the time to explain that to your children or whatever it is that they struggle with, especially if you have struggled with it, because they'll understand they're not broken, they're just humans, and most likely they are just like you. So they're not alone in their humanness. So as we finished our day, I that idea just stayed in my mind. And I thought of how it's so true. We are asked to obey God, to obey the 10 commandments, to obey the commandments of love God and love others, to obey everything and anything. But why can we trust God when he says to forgive everyone, to show forgiveness 70 times 7? Can we trust that if we do that, there's good for us on the other side? When he says if somebody asks something for you, go the extra mile. Can we trust that we'll be safe doing that and that we're not just going to end up being doormats? When he says to tithe, the return of 10%, and that he will do above more, abundantly more with the 90% that we keep of our money if we give that 10%, right? Um, can we trust him to still provide with less money in my pocket? Can we trust him? What's another big one? With our time. If he's asking me to give him the first time of my day, give him a day of the week for rest, give him whatever. Like, can I trust that things won't fall apart if I dedicate extra time to him? And I'm saying that because as adults, we tend to just be busy and not have enough time for good things or even our responsibilities. And when you're saying, I'm going to give you the first 30 minutes, well, what can I be doing with those 30 minutes? I could be working out because that's good for my health. I could be spending time with whoever. I could be getting on top of my emails. Like, I could be doing so many other things. Can I trust you? All of those things are different forms of obedience. Can I trust you to wait to have sex till I get married? Can I trust you to bring up my children in the admonition of the Lord? Can I trust you? Like, do I trust the God that is asking me for all those things? Is it safe for me to give my obedience to God? And maybe you don't think that you openly or maybe you don't openly question those things. Maybe you say, I believe in God, I have faith, and I trust Him. Well, believing in God and having faith doesn't necessarily equate to trusting because trust, sometimes we are we are so broken sometimes because of our relationships, because of trauma, because of whatever, that trusting others becomes really, really hard. And that affects our relationship even with God. And where we may want to trust Him with everything, we're like, I trust you, God, but please show me the way and give me the steps and tell me other things. And I'm holding tight fists to everything because I can't just let go and trust that God is who He says He is. Or the picture I have in my head of who God is doesn't match a benevolent God, doesn't match someone who will just be on my corner or will bring good to me. And all of these things can be messing in our heads as to why we're not obeying. So, this is my definition, right, of trust. Trust is, to me, is repeated and dependable actions, right, through time. This doesn't mean that you showed up for me once, that one time 20 years ago, and we're good. No, it's showing up one day after the other, after the other, after the other for my good. Um, that builds trust and that restores trust. So if a friend has lied to you, if a spouse has broken your trust in any given way, you can choose to forgive, but once you forgive, you also, that person has to do whatever they have to do, be dependable and reliable with their honesty over a long period of time for you to build that trust back, right? So that that is how we deal healthily with relationships and trust. But God is not like that because He's never lost your trust. He's never done you wrong. He's never proven to you that he is careless, that he is aloof to your problems, that he is distant. He's always there. And as you grow in your faith, you will develop that trust because you will be all these videos have been about you being in the word to know who he is, being in prayer so that you can exercise that muscle, but also sit back and contemplate what God is doing. And the more he does, when you're paying attention, the more your trust in him will grow. But today, I just wanted to give this text to anybody who has doesn't have a long record of overtime, or they don't feel like they have a record to show that God is dependable and good. And so you want to trust, but you're having a hard time. And maybe your measure of whether you trust God or not is your measure of your obedience. Trust may be something that you just don't know how to um, measure, but obedience is. If you're struggling inward with, I know, and I'm not talking about every rule and everything at once that everybody wants to put on you. I'm talking about those convictions in your heart that God is telling you, give me that, or surrender that to me, that thing that you just know. Like every time that we talk about sins or surrender or obedience, I think that the Holy Spirit brings to your mind the one thing that he's working on with you, right? So whatever it is, that if your posture is, I don't know, I gotta think, I gotta research, maybe, or you start looking at all the people who are not living according to that, or the people who may do are living in obedience, but you're like, I cannot measure up to that, or whatever it is. We all have that. If that's your response, perhaps there's a little bit of a lack of trust. And I would say bring it to God because he can deal with it. He's the one that gives us the everything that's good and that's needed. He gives it to us for us to have good lives, right? And trusting him is, to me, a vital component of us having a peaceful, good life on this earth. So I'm going to give you something from the book of Lamentations just to meditate on. I want you to write this down and just post it everywhere if you're wanting to grow your trust in God. If you're wanting to remind yourself constantly that he is good and that he is faithful and that he shows up every day over time, but you don't yet have your own battles that he's fought for you, or you don't yet have a remembrance of things that he's done in your life, let's go to the scripture. This is what it says in Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 22, 23, and 24. It says, the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance. Therefore, I will hope in him. If you are wondering if he can be trusted, look at your morning every morning. Every single morning, he makes the sun rise. Whether you choose to trust him or not, he is trustworthy. He is faithful. He is merciful. And he shows up. He goes ahead and gives you a new day. And with that new day are his mercies, brand new for you every single day. So look to the things that you depend on that you don't even stop to think and thank God for. The moon shows up, making sure that the tides are coming in and out. The sun shows up, making sure that we have life in this planet. Life cannot be sustained without that. You have the night that comes once the sun sets so that you can rest. You have everything you need as a reminder every day. God could have made us live in a world with no day, with no night, with no cyclical things. But he made it so that everything runs on a cycle. So he can show you day after day, afternoon after afternoon, morning after morning, night after night, that he is faithful. Whether you believe in him or not, he is faithful. Whether you trust him or not, he's faithful. Whether you love him or not, he is faithful. So hold on to this word and wake up every day asking God to help you trust him and praising him for the ways that he has already shown up in your life, like with giving you a brand new morning full of mercies every single day of your life. Start there, and then start noticing what are the other things. In which other ways and aspects of your life does He show up for you? And remember that we can obey God because He is trustworthy. So if He asks us to do something, it will always be ultimately for our good and the good of others. And most of all, to bring honor and glory to the name of God. I hope that this made you think maybe about this in a different way, or that gives you a renewed sense of awe and wonder about how good God is. And most of all, I hope that this draws you closer to the God who loves you so very much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.